Holding this cardiomergen is that we want to spread awareness about team approach, and since we started in 2011 we have been doing annually every year, and till 2014 we did in India. After that we have been doing abroad every year. So after 10 years we thought of doing it again in India. So in the team approach we would like to discuss everything that can be done in a better way with the help of a team. So today I'll briefly speak about team approach for surgical management of ischemic heart failure. So ischemic heart failure, as you know, this is a big problem which is happening every year. It is increasing. So the burden of heart failure in India is increasing every year, and it is growing as a silent pandemic. And every year so many patients they die because of heart failure. It is estimated that in 1 year the mortality rate is 31%, in 3 years 45%, and 60% in 5 years in India. So which is very alarming. So it is seen that in India the cause of heart failure is most commonly it is because the patient comes late to the hospital after a heart attack. So if the patient comes immediately, then there is no damage to the muscles. The muscle remains viable, and if you revascularize, then the muscle will fully recover. But if the person comes to the hospital late and part of the muscle is dying, then some part of the muscle will be hibernating. That will be revived, but the muscle which is infarcted already, that will not revive. So the patient will survive, but in the long run, the patient will become a patient of a heart failure. So we diagnose clinically heart failure, we diagnose by pro-BNP, and those patients who come with acute MI, that is a acute ischemic heart failure, that can be diagnosed with the rising troponin levels also. The patient keeps on having some exacerbation of symptoms, and after treatment patient will recover. So there are ups and downs. So patient keeps on coming to the hospital and then improves, goes back, and then again comes back, repeated readmissions, and day by day his quality of life will keep on deteriorating until he becomes a totally refractory patient or the end stage heart failure. So what we should do in these patients is that we started following the guidelines. Like initially people were afraid to operate on heart failure patients because we used to do the surgeries on pump, and when the patient was put on pump, then after the successful surgery, when we weaned the patient off the pump, then patient used to get stuck. So we had difficult weaning, and inotropic requirement used to be high, and then patient used to have a stormy period in the surgery OT also, and in the post-operative period also. But then we started doing the surgery off pump, and after off pump there was a drastic change in the post-operative as well as intra-operative. There was no longer arrhythmias, post-operative renal failure, high inotrope score. Patient used to recover faster. So guidelines also say that if the patient is having ischemic heart failure, you should revascularize the patient surgically. And once you do surgically, initially I'm talking about 20 years back, then we started doing off pump all these patients. It is seen that a decrease in 10% of left ventricular ejection fraction, it increases the cardiovascular death rate by almost 50%. So if there is a 10 ml increase in the end diastolic volume, then the mortality increases by 9%. If there is a 10 ml increase in the left ventricular end systolic volume, increase in the death rate is 15%. So it was seen that the mortality rate after doing a surgery on pump, it was double than the mortality that was seen on pump, and half if we do the surgery off pump. So it was seen that if the ejection fraction was between 21% to 30%, it doubles the risk of in-hospital mortality post CABG. So there were various studies, and in the next decade, it was very clear that if you do the surgeries of pump, then the recovery is better. Now we have the 4 pillars of medical management, that is ARNI, beta blockers, MRI, and SGLT2 inhibitors. So a team approach, we just don't do the surgeries. We have to take care of the patient's medical management also. So we take the support of cardiologists all the time. We take the support of pulmonologists, nephrologists, endocrinologists, and we work as a team so that we get the best outcome in the patients who are getting operated for those patients who are getting revascularized for ischemic heart failure. So another big problem that we face is that patients with heart failure, they have renal problems also and they have hyperkalemia also. So repeated admissions for hyperkalemia may occur, and we have to monitor the potassium level also very closely. Otherwise, many patients they may even die because of hyperkalemia. So one problem that we face is that the caliber of the vessel is very small and number of vessels involved are multiple, and the lesions are more proximally located, and there are multiple lesions at the bifurcation of the epicardial arteries, and most of the patients they are diabetic also, and there is a lot of calcification in these patients when we go for the surgery. And these patients may be loaded with antiplatelet agents. So we have to take care of the bleeding also, and many times sometimes we have to give fresh platelet by apheresis. And then here you can see the various echocardiograms of these patients. The heart may be dilated, some walls may be akinetic or dyskinetic, and sometimes there is pooling of the contrast at the apical part, and also there may be significant mitral regurgitation in these patients. So if the mitral regurgitation is severe, we optimize the patient first. We try to reduce. Initially, we used to plan CVG and mitral valve replacement, but it was found that it is not useful, rather it increases the risk. So what we do is we optimize the patient with guideline-directed medical therapy. We try to reduce the MR, reduce the volumes of the heart, and then we take the patient for CAVG. And with that, because of the good support of the cardiologist, we are able to operate even patients with ejection fraction of 15 to 20%, and they give very good results, and we discharge the patient within 4 or 5 days. And a lot of expectations were raised because of the off-pump surgery, and we operate the surgery. We have a lot of support from the octopus stabilizer. We have intracoronary shunts, and the anesthetists they play a very important role in managing the patient while we are operating, because initially there used to be hemodynamic collapse, and we used to have problem because the complication rate and mortality rate used to increase after the hemodynamic collapse. So what we do is initially, like mammary artery is a must in all the patients, but sometimes if the patient is a acute MI and if the ejection fraction is very low, 15-20%, then we may even take quickly veins. And here I will show you in this video. This is one of the patients who had a massive anterior wall infarct, and here you can see that the left ventricle is hardly moving, and the patient was taken for surgery. And the right ventricle you can see is moving normally, and immediately we do the surgery off pump. And we have to be careful, because if you keep the octopus very near to the place where the massive infarct is there, so sometimes it can rupture the ventricle. So I've seen a couple of cases of ventricular rupture, and it is a disaster in the OT, because the muscle is very fragile, and if you keep on repairing the muscle, it will keep on tearing and tearing. So we have to be very careful in doing such surgeries, and especially when you lift the heart. So at that time, you have to be very careful. Sometimes we use this starfish or urchin, and many times the vessel may be intramyocardial, and it may be very distally, you may be able to locate it. So we use the epicardial detectors, and this is one case where the apex was stuck to the diaphragm. So previously people used to excise it and then repair it with Teflon felt, and later on, after the stitch trial, it was seen that this is no longer useful. It may increase the mortality rate and the morbidity after surgery. So what we did in this case was we just simply put the grafts without touching the apex. So this patient recovered well after the surgery. So we can use sequential grafts, and we can also that not only increase the post-operative long-term graft patency, and it can also decrease the operating time in such patients. And here I'll show you a comparison of when we started doing comprehensive management and before we were doing comprehensive management, comparison between 1000 cases before and 1000 cases after. So here you can see that cardiogenic shock incidence was more before, but nowadays we are able, because of the optimized team approach, we have less cases who go into shock during surgery or before surgery. And also it was seen that the number of females that is increasing who come with ischemic heart failure. And also it was seen that the ventricular fibrillation rate, ventricular tachycardia rate was more in the previous group of patients, and it is less now after we started the team approach. And also the incidence of acute renal failure and patient requiring dialysis or nephrology support, they are now very negligible. And also it was seen that the ICU stay and the post-operative hospital stay has also decreased over the period of time in this group. And apart from that, the use of intra-aortic balloon pump, when the ejection fraction is low, and previously if the ejection fraction was below 30%, we used to straight away put the patient on intra-aortic balloon pump 20 years back. But then we used to wait till if the PA pressures were very high, or if we were having some arrhythmias, or if we are having some hemodynamic instability, then maybe we put the patient for intra-aortic balloon pump support. But nowadays, very rarely we put the patient on intra-aortic balloon pump, and even we have operated up to 20 to 25% patient. So we just wait. If it is really necessary, only then we put. Otherwise, the patient, we have managed all the patient on pump, and the conversion to pump rate has also gone very low. Like initially, we used to have some convergence, but I think in the last 1000 cases, we have only 2 conversions, and that too because of the patient came, crashed, and they were having already asystole or ventricular arrhythmias, and we did open cardiac massage, and then we put the patients on pump, and later on they recovered after 4-5 days. So I would like to conclude that reduced conversion to pump, reduced intraoperative complications, reduced arrhythmias, reduced requirement of blood products, reduced inotropic support, and reduced ICU time, hospital stay, reduced readmissions, re-interventions, improved quality of life, and improved left ventricular ejection fraction, improved LVED, LVES, and regression of MR, and improved short-term as well as long-term survival of the patient. We get very few patients readmissions. I haven't done redo surgery for the last more than 10 years. Last one I did was I think in 2014. And most of the patients, very few, once in a year somebody comes with disease that requires stenting. Otherwise, touch wood, very few re-interventions. And many patients, they are coming after 20 years also. So with that, I conclude my talk.